Everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today, all about ERTC, which is the Employee Retention Tax Credit. I am Jeannie Michaelides, Director of Client Experience for Advanced Partners. Many of you on this call already know us, and I also, by the way, want to welcome our teammates, industry partners, and friends who are joining us today. Advanced Partners is the leading provider of funding to the staffing industry. And one of the ways we have attained and retained this position is our consultative approach. And offering this information today is a perfect example of that. Before we get started, I want to introduce you to the magic man, our partner at Paychex Corporate, Alan, who has a few housekeeping items to talk about. Alan?
Thank you, Jeannie, and welcome everyone. A few housekeeping items. First, the webinar is being recorded, and we will share that with everyone and have it available after the event concludes. If you'd like to submit a question for our team here today, use that Ask a Question widget indicated in your webinar console. If your question is not answered, it is valuable in helping us to develop additional resources for you, like FAQs, articles, and future events like today's webinar. We'll do our best to answer all the questions, but may not get to all of them. As mentioned here today, we have a Learn More section. That's where you can find a copy of today's presentation slides. Also, there's going to be a survey that's going to launch at the end of the event. We hope that you take a moment to fill it out, as your feedback is valuable to us in refining the content that we provide to you. You can also take the survey anytime, as it is on the console for easy access. And for any technical issues during the broadcast, there's a little help widget there on that bar at the bottom, and that will help you with any of the most common issues and with some resolutions as well. And Jeannie, back to you to keep us going.
Great. Alan, thanks so much. I'm glad you're doing all that technical stuff. I'd be lost. So without any more intro, or maybe the main intro, I should say, many of you also are already working with our strategic partner SyncStream for ACA reporting, who knew they are also the industry leader and experts in all things ERTC. And Michelle Kirshner is joining us to present this webinar. And she is her area of expertise is helping staffing firms understand if they meet ERTC qualifications. Michelle, help us out.
Wonderful. Jeannie, thank you so much for the introduction, and we are super excited to be here with all of you today. I'm going to dive into a lot of the details. When I go through this session today, I'm going to be speaking about all of the ins and the outs. I'm going to be talking about debunking myths, and I'm going to explain the process so that all of those questions that you had about ERTC, we're going to answer them today. But as Jeannie stated, SyncStream started off in doing ACA reporting with our dear friends at Advanced Partners, and we love all of our great relationships that we have with all of you, and we're super excited to continue those relationships and work along. Here's just an example of some of the clients that we have on board with us presently, and as you can see, there are many that are using our ACA services. If you need help with that, as Jeannie said, you can always reach out, and you'll have my email at the end. You can reach out about ACA or ERTC. But as we talk about ERTC today, some of the things I want to share with you. On my team, we have over 100 years of combined credit experience. We've done $1.5 billion in incentives in capturing that with the ERTC. So this is really important news as you go through to know that you're with the leading expert who's doing this and knows this. Another key fact that's very, very important is knowing that this is zero upfront cost to you. It should not cost you money to do this. This is 100% success fee based. So I'm going to collect your data, go through your data, find those credits for you, and then let you know where it applies. Another important part that nobody can back up at this point, my company is the only one, we're 100% audit protection. We will defend any of our work fully to the IRS. We have a strong relationship in making sure that our IRS compliance, our payroll data, and our white glove service is taken care of for you. And with our partners at Advance, they guide us through this and really help each one of you secure these credits so that you can see and reap the rewards of what's out here for you. So let's talk a little bit about COVID Employee Retention Tax Credit. A lot of people say to me, Michelle, what is it? How does this work? So let's dive into that. This encourages businesses to retain employees during COVID-19. So why is this credit in play? The credit is worth up to $5,000 per employee in 2020 and up to $7,000 per employee in quarters 2021. And note that it is for 3 quarters in 2021. This can result in a maximum credit of $26,000 per employee. And many people say, I heard about a PPP loan, but I haven't heard of an ERTC. Is it different? So I want to share with you, yes, an ERTC is different than a PPP. I will tell you this credit is fully refundable and it results in cash. You're going to hear me talk about credits because that's how it's referred to with the IRS. Credits means cash. So I want to point that out to you so you understand that when I say credits, we're talking cash. One of the things that you will see is that you will get a check. Many people say to me, Michelle, when you refer to credits, will I get like a credit from the IRS? No, you'll physically receive a check, just like you do for your income tax return. And I have a picture of that check right down here, and it will be sent off to you after we proceed through the process and get you qualified. It will come in the form of a check. So many people say, Michelle, you talk about you've been in business for over 20 years doing this tax credit. How does that work? Because the ERTC has only been around about a year, and that's correct. So I want to share with you where my company has been and what we are doing so that you understand. We work in disaster recovery and R&D. I wanted to put up some examples so that you can see. In 2020, here are some of the areas that we did that disaster tax relief. For hurricanes or different scenarios, we're called in by the government to come in and help people within those areas to secure what the government allowance is for their mishap in this whole situation and how we can support and drive you forward in that process. So now I like to cover some debunking myths because many people reach out to me and many of you I've already spoken with. So I'm excited to have you on this session today so that we can dive into some more material. Many people say, Michelle, I've spoken with my accountant and he advised me that possibly we didn't apply or we weren't qualified. So he did not want to apply us. Well, we're going to dive into that with you. I'm going to talk about with you today about a few of the facts. Now, here's usually the first phone call that I get. Michelle, I spoke with my accountant and I received a PPP loan. Does that mean that I do not qualify? That is incorrect. If you have received a PPP loan, we will ask you to submit that paperwork into our portal through a link so that we have that information. Usually another common question that comes up is, Michelle, I do Work Opportunity Tax Credit, WOTC or WOTC. Does that disqualify me? No, it does not. Again, like the PPP loan, if you are doing work with WOTC, I'm going to ask you to submit that detail into our portal. What we're doing here is we're making sure that the government knows that you have done these programs and that we're putting it into the system so they know exactly. We like to say we're protecting ourselves and you from double dipping. Another question that usually comes up is, in the staffing world, your business was deemed essential, so you never closed your doors. So many of you probably showed a profit during this pandemic. And accountants will tell you if you had a profit, you cannot apply. That is incorrect. I'm going to show you how we're going to dive in and we're going to look at these areas where your business was truly affected. And this is key with making sure that you know that you're allowed these dollars that are out there, and we're going to help you find them. So where I'm going to be looking is in business interruptions. My team will dive into this process. We're going to be looking at reduced hours of operations and how you had to function because of that reduced hours of operations. We're going to be talking about full or partial shutdowns. Maybe you had to close at certain times your business or had to do different things to close and then reopen. We're going to talk about limited capacity. Maybe you couldn't have everybody in one building, so that affected your staffing and how you worked with people. We're going to talk about the interrupted operations and how you worked through those interrupted operations. We're going to talk about your inability to assess equipment. Maybe you couldn't get things or it was tied up because they couldn't come in through the ports. Whatever that is, we're going to tie all of that in and we're going to speak about it. That also ties into supply chain disruptions, and we're going to work with you on that to make sure that we can really hone in on these fine details so that we can get the maximum credits for you. We're also going to talk about a reduction of service or goods offered to your customers and what the steps were that you had to take in order to get past this. We're going to talk about how you shifted hours due to COVID precautions, and we're going to talk about that inability to work with your vendors. Here, people bring you in as staffing firms and you couldn't communicate with them. How did that affect your business? We're going to pull all of that detail together and really dive in. And then we're going to talk about what did you have to do for sanitation practices? Did you have to change things? What did that look like? And as we dive into those details, that's how we really pull together all of the COVID restrictions, requirements through the IRS. And then we take the retailer interruptions through staffing and tie the two of those together. Now, many people say to me, Michelle, I heard this process is very lengthy and it takes a lot of time. I like to dive into that. So today, after this session, you're going to receive my email. If you're interested in going to the next steps, you're going to email me, and I am going to ask you 5 questions about your business. And when you send that back to me, I will send you a link. In this link, there are 2 setup forms. Step 1 is a simple sign up, and it's about your business. You'll have all of the details. If you're the business owner or the business manager or the CFO, you will have those details. So as you go through, you could probably fill that out in about 15 minutes. Now, in that email comes step 2. When you're looking at step 2, there is a section in there, and I have some handouts. And when you get the email from me, you will see what you need to supply. In step 2, you will need to supply 941 quarterly taxes. You will need to supply gross receipts. And you will go through and you will follow the steps in uploading that into the portal. You will also load in anything that you had on a PPP loan and anything that you're doing on the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. Now, again, you don't need to write that down. When I send you the email, I will say, here are the things you need when you sit down for step 2. Now, as you know, our great partners at Advanced Partners have said that they will help and facilitate in this process. So it's merely reaching out to ourselves, and we will help you get the guidance that you need in order to proceed in the next steps. Once all of that data is submitted into our portal, what happens next is this goes into my tax team. They're going to start reviewing this. My accountants start to review, and they're pulling together what are the credits. So we're trying to find out if you qualify. We're going to go after every angle, find that level of qualification. Once we find that you qualify, we're going to send another email back to you. And we're going to say, all right, we've found the credits and we can get you applied for these credits. I need one more thing. And this takes about 60 minutes of your time. And I am looking for payroll data. And again, our great partners at Advanced Partners will have your hand in this and help you out as we move forward, and they will help you in the submission of your payroll data. Once that comes back and uploaded into the portal, this is where my CPAs and tax attorneys really start to do that heavy lifting and evaluating. They're pulling this together and they're taking the information from your previous submission along with your payroll submission, and we're going to start digging through all of the details, all of the wages and the paid and the sick. We're going to go through all of that so that we can really firm up what are the details and what are the dollars and what does it look like. After that 3-week process of review from my team, then we're going to come back and I'm going to send you an email and I'm going to say, I've got great news. You've qualified and we know the dollar amount that you're going to receive. We get on the phone with you and we're going to walk you through those steps. At the end of this process, you will have a document with all of your ERTC credits that we have done. That documentation will be yours to keep. We will also go through and amend your taxes, the 941X, and proceed to the IRS with that information and file that off. At that time, we will share with you that dollar amount that you are going to receive. We will proceed to give you an invoice for what it is. And I'm going to jump into that scale next so that you can see what that looks like. But you don't pay an invoice to me until you get a check from the IRS and you put it into the bank. So I'll dive into those details with you next as we talk about the 7th step is the submission to the IRS. I want to share with you on this step This can take 6 to 9 months once we submit to the IRS in order to get that check back. We have had some cases that have come back a little bit earlier, but I do not want to use that as an example. We've had people submit in February that are now getting checks back in June. But we're going to go forward with plan on 6 to 9 months. And if it comes earlier, we'll all be happy. So to kind of dive in and give you a little scenario of what this looks like. Once we get done with this session, again, if you're interested, you're going to email me, and my email will be at the end. Once you email me, I'll send you a link. That link takes about 45 to 60 minutes. It's 2 steps in the link. Then it comes back to me. My team does their analysis. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks. We'll submit back to you that we're now ready for your payroll. Again, we'll work with our great partners, advanced partners, and they will help us get this data and get everything loaded into the portal. And then that's when we do that really deep dive into the analysis and information to really pull forward with what are the credits and what it looks like. And then we're waiting again 6 to 9 months, 5 to 6 months. It's a mince on numbers, but just I would say to everybody, plan on 9 months before you see a check. Now, we're looking at your retailer's time of about 2 to 4 hours. And I'm going to share with you, we're finding some substantial dollars in this industry. There is no risk to you in this. If you do not qualify, this costs you nothing. It's my job to get you qualified, and I'm not going to charge you as we go through this process. You're in this process to find out if we can get you qualified. If you do qualify, we will wait alongside of you, as I have said, until you get that check from the IRS. We're in the waiting game with you. Now let's dive into that scale so that you can see what it looks like. So to give you an example, if I find you $100,000, I'm going to take 20%. If I find you $1 million, I'm going to take 12.5%. So my goal is to find $1 million for everybody on the call today, because that's ultimately our goal, is to find you the maximum in credits. So usually the question that comes up at this time is, Michelle, can you help us understand where are people at? What does this look like? Our average staffing company receives about $200,000 in credits. So that's on average. And we have many staffing companies, but I have one staffing company right now that's projected to receive about $1.2 million. So usually the question that comes up is, hey, Michelle, what can I do with this money? What does this mean? You know, we're in the industry to say with the PPP loan, they deemed what you could do. With the ERTC, they do not deem what you can do with this money. That is totally up to you. If you want to keep it for a nest egg, you can keep it for a nest egg. If you want to keep this money to say possibly there could be a recession coming up and my goodness, I want to make sure that I'm saving my money, you could do that. You may say, I want to open another staffing firm and I need advanced partners help with more funding. That's exactly what needs to happen. So go use that money wisely as we go through this process so that we can get it taken care of for you. So I'd like to really dive in. And again, we're going to look and see if we can answer some questions today and really walk through this process. But I want to put this up on the screen so that everybody can see it. If you could write down my email address, and if you don't have a pen or a pencil, or if you're just listening in, you can always reach to Advanced Partners, and they have my email and my phone on speed dial. So they know exactly how to get a hold of me. But if you're interested in looking and getting more information on how we can help you to see if we can qualify you, this is exactly the next steps that you can take. And I always want to talk about our disclaimer here so that you can see this. If you could take a minute to view this and make sure you understand this disclaimer, I'll give it a few minutes. And then Jeannie and Alan and team, I'd love to turn it over if we have any questions that I can answer today.
Michelle, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Alan, I have a question right off the bat. May I go for it?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it, Jeannie.
Michelle, is there a time frame around which you should apply or check your qualifications? Is this a finite?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeannie. I didn't mean to cut you off. I get excited because so many people ask me that. We have about a year left in the program, and I will tell you it's to the end of this year. So when I'm saying that, we do not want to drag our feet. We never know when the government's going to run out of money or when they're going to stop a program. So moving forward with this, it is something that you should consider right away because of the fact that we never know when they're going to run out of money or the program is going to be brought to a halt.
Perfect. So don't
Great
wait.
information. Yeah, and I have a question that did come in
Sure.
from Russ, and he asks, what is the deadline to file? And that, I think, pretty much is along the same lines, correct?
Yes, that's the same thing. So, Russ, what you really want to know is that this program is in a possibility of ending at the end of this year. As soon as you can get yourself qualified, it's best because we never know when that program is going to be pulled or stopped.
Michelle, I have a follow-up question then too.
Sure.
During the PPP loan process, for example, we would often get updates like the bucket is almost empty, or do we know how many funds are out there for this program?
You know, Jeannie, that's a great question. There is no update in regards to this program. We do not have government access that they say to us the bucket's low or we're running out of time. But if we do proceed in that fashion and it starts to get to the end and we get information, we will supply it and give that to you.
Great, thanks.
You know, something that usually comes up in all of my other sessions, and I'm going to just put a few things out there. One of the questions that usually comes up is, hey, Michelle, when I get a check, is this taxable? Yes, it is. And take that into consideration because it is like being issued a check and there will be taxes that are taken on this check.
Thank you, Michelle. Actually, that was the next question I was going to ask. Joe had submitted that question that says, is this money taxed? So I'm glad we're all thinking the same thing here.
Well, look at that. We've got great minds. Joe, yes, that will be taxed. So you want to keep that in consideration when we go through that process and you receive a check. Understand that that will be taxable income.
And I do want to clarify also, Michelle, you have said this each time that the staffing firm owner or CFO or manager, whoever is tasked with this, as they engage, that they will enter the portal and enter the information. Now, for any advanced partners client where we have your payroll information and we have your 941s, we would supply them to you and you would do the portal upload. It's your information, you're the owner of it. So there's no like third party involved. You are managing all of that data yourself. So I just want to make it clear that we do not do the reporting for you, but we will give you the information that we have.
That's great detail, Jeannie. And, you know, when you're in this portal, I want to share with you, it's a time that you really want to sit down and have all of your detail pulled together so that you're submitting all of this information at once. We understand that sometimes we get distracted and get pulled away, but it really creates a lot of issues when you get distracted and get pulled away because sometimes you didn't save your data. It's really important to dedicate the time to get it in, sit down, focus on it, make sure you have everything, and then that way your submission comes through seamlessly.
But your team reviews all that, correct?
Absolutely. My team reviews everything.
Awesome. Going through the questions here, I see another one. Wendy asks, Michelle, how does this work if you process your payroll through a PEO? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we do have PEO payroll that we have worked with, and we can work with that. So what we do is we'll capture that detailed information, and when you come into our portal, we ask those specific questions. We will ask, who is your payroll provider? What are the steps? Because we're proceeding with this process day in, day out, and sometimes we're taking in 50 to 70 clients a day, we know the majority of the PEOs and groups that we're working with. So that is not a problem for us at all. And we understand that, Wendy.
Great. Another PEO related question. Mark asks, we use a PEO and have been told we cannot apply for ERTC. Is that true?
Do you know, we have to take a look at all of the finite scenarios. There could be some details in regards to your PEO, but we can dive into that with you as we go through the process. I do not want to say that you're automatically disqualified. That is not true. We have to make sure that we can get you qualified, and following the PEO steps, we can go through and find that out for you.
Great. Yeah, good information there. Let's see, another question. Tatiana asks, does this work for startup staffing firms?
Yes. Now, I believe you said her name was Tatiana.
Yes.
Okay, Tatiana, here's what I'm going to share with you and anybody who is listening. So this period is for 2020 and 2021. So when we talk about startup, you have to have business that was in 2020 or 2021. So I want to be clear in that as we proceed. Does that, I think that answers her question or gives her the detail to answer it, Alan.
So
Yeah,
Michelle, it doesn't have to be both. It could be one or the other, as
Correct.
long as she had business in 2021.
Yes, if she had business in 2020 or 2021, then that makes her qualified.
Great. Another question came through, and it reads, how long is it taking to process? Claims filed before the deadline will be accepted if not processed for months. I guess this is an opportunity for you to just share in your experience how long you've seen it taking.
Yeah, that's a great question. So here's what I'm going to share with you. As we go through this process really moves as quick as you do. As long as you have the data and you're submitting it and pushing it through, I've seen clients go through this process within 6 weeks. So it's really dependent upon how you supply that information and how my team reviews it. If you have multiple complex scenarios, then it's going to take a little bit more time with multiple locations because we have to review all those entities. But I will share with you as you go through the process, a typical timeline for this. I think a fair, safe bet would be around 8 weeks to get from start to finish through the process. Understand when I'm talking 8 weeks, that doesn't mean the check comes in 8 weeks. The check comes from the IRS in 6 to 9 months. Hopefully that gives the clarification, Alan.
Great. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question to that, Michelle, though.
Sure.
So when we were originally talking about perhaps a finite time period of by the end of this year, you're talking about to file, correct?
Correct. To file.
Okay. Not to have the check in hand.
Correct. To file.
Another question, it reads, I have about 30 employees and didn't have any hardship during COVID. Am I still qualified for this program?
Great question. And again, I'm qualifying people who have had a profit, who have had a sustainable business. We understand you were essential workers. I am qualifying right now. I'm at 100%. I'm qualifying all of our groups, and staffing is a large industry where you do qualify, even though you had a profit. It's okay. You had to keep your doors open and you had to be on the front line. And this is why they want to reward you. So it is not solely based on, I had a profit, therefore I don't qualify. That is untrue. We're going to go after those business interruptions on how we get you qualified.
I would also like to add, while SyncStream does do business with other industries, they have an absolute expertise in staffing, which is why we have such a strong partnership.
We love our staffing world, and what I will share with everybody who's on this call, which many of you are my partners, the staffing world is so welcoming and just such great people, and you work so hard that when Jeannie and I and Jeremy were discussing how we roll this forward, we said we want to be able to reward everybody in this process, and how do we do that, and what does that look like? So we're hoping that we can get you all qualified so you can go buy more staffing companies and need more funding.
Good to know. Another question came in. What is the burden of proof to show how the business was adversely affected due to COVID?
You know, that's a great question. And my tax team really dives in on this burden of proof. As you heard me say, we have worked with the IRS for years. We do not want to have any complications with our relationship with the IRS. So if you don't qualify, we're not going to push it. We got to make sure that we sustain our relationship with the IRS and yours. And I have to back this at 100%. So as we go through and start looking at this burden of proof, we're going to be pulling good data. We're going to be pulling data that we know applies and will meet the IRS standards. So we will not scrimp or compromise in this area at all.
All right. Yeah, that's great information. Another question, do the wages of S-Corp owners qualify for this credit?
I have several S corps. So at this point, I would tell you my tax team will dive in on this and they will pull it forward. As long as you are filing 941 quarterlies, this is a payroll tax credit. So as long as you're doing 941 quarterlies, we'll dive into those details and review over all of that.
All right. Last question I wanted to bring forward today. Our accountant already had us pay taxes on anticipated ERTC credits for both 2020 and 2021. Is that normal?
I have more questions that I need to ask to find out if that's normal or not. I believe this is an offline conversation that we don't want to have recorded and on a session. So whoever that individual is, please look for my email and you can send me an email and I am happy to follow up with you on those conversations.
Great. Thank you. So that's all the time and that we have for our question and answer session. I want to turn it back over to Jeannie and Michelle to close things out.
Wonderful. So Michelle, that was phenomenal information. I loved all the questions that came in because that tells me that people have a keen interest. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Michelle. She's been a very valuable strategic partner to Advanced Partners and our clients. And I know that she would do everything that she can to help you as well. Michelle, thank you so very much. We will, let me think, how are we following up with the information? Alan, did you say that it will be sent out to the participants?
Yeah, we'll conduct a follow-up to our audience here. We can send a post event email and it can have a link to this recording. So
perfect.
We'll make sure that that gets addressed and gets sent out to everyone.
Excellent. Michelle, any last remarks?
No, I thank you, Advanced Partners, and really stepping up to help your clients and they're really pushing this forward. It's because of their efforts that you're all here today, and we look forward to getting your emails and qualifying and see where we can get you qualified in this process, and then having those follow-up conversations of the dollars that we can send to you with all of your help.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.